'Cause I'll be there for you, 'cause we care for you. You're there for me too, my friend. I know it's hard sometimes when you feel left behind. Tell me what's on your mind. Why do this on your own, yeah? 'Cause I'll be there for.
Hello, welcome to Johnny's Chats. I'm here with Rick William, trauma-informed coach, breathwork therapist, and a man of, well, we're about to find out everything that he can offer on mental health and everything that goes with it. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, good man. Yeah, nice one, nice one. All right, let's start. We want to start with telling us a bit about what you do, like, and how you got into it, sort of thing. A bit about your own journey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, my personal development and growth journey began in my early 20s. I used to live in the UK in Newcastle. And yeah, I created a business in my early 20s, and that kind of led me into just exploring my own growth because I realized how I was showing up in the world was affecting my team and ultimately everyone around me. Um, and I was heavily into the fitness industry and bodybuilding at the time. Um, which had led on from was like my new way of coping. Just to rewind back a little bit, because it's probably relevant. In my teen years, I struggled with drug addiction up until about the age of 19. When I actually had a psychedelic experience at age 19, which kind of changed my trajectory somewhat. And I basically moved out of that house I was living with. I wasn't in a great environment. We were taking lots of drugs. There was partying going on most evenings. Um, and that one experience kind of showed me how I was showing up in the world and that how it was affecting everyone else in my life. So I didn't know much about psychedelics at the time. I didn't know much about healing at the time. But that kind of changed the trajectory for me. It kind of opened new possibilities. So all I knew at that point, this wasn't spoken about or popular online, but at that point I was just like, right, I need to kind of sort my life out. So at that point I was like, right, I'm going to stop going to the gym. I'm going to basically like focus and kind of give myself some discipline and something to work towards. So that was my first kind of port of call. And I got so into it, so into it. And it was a real way for me to kind of work out a lot of that internal anger that I was feeling. And I created a business, and that became, quote unquote, successful in terms of society standards. And I had a penthouse and a car and all these things, and none of this which I had before. I was living in a, like almost like a council flat in kind of a rough part of Newcastle. And so this was, totally the opposite. I began to make societal success. I had the body that many other guys wanted or desired, but I was just deeply unfulfilled. So I had all of these things. I had the penthouse, I had the car, I had the body, ticked all the fucking boxes, but I just wasn't happy, and I knew there was something else that was missing. So at that point, I was reading other books, and I was aware of some of my mentors and teachers, and they were all meditating. So I was like, what's this thing about? So I started meditating, I started self-reflecting, I started doing, shadow work and really kind of looking at deeper parts of myself and essentially beginning my healing journey. And that started at about age 25. And that's just evolved and grown, kind of from then on outwards. And I ended up, moving on from that business deliberately because it was so unfulfilling. I moved away from Newcastle and yeah, started to kind of really rebuild my life. And from that, I've, met many amazing healers and teachers and coaches and different, modalities and tools, which have all been a part of me arriving here today at age 32.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's quality, man. So, like, well, we could talk about obviously both being like natives to England. We are there is a culture here of like, like people that aren't partying, and then there's like if they're not partying, then they're either trying to develop a success through business means and stuff like that, but still not fulfilled, and then they might go back into the drugs. There's a real drug culture in this country, sort of thing, like. But like, yeah, with your psychedelic experience, that sort of like took you away from one aspect of society to another aspect of society, and like you said, it opened your eyes, and like you moved out of that. But then you're trying to find fulfillment in another aspect of what society tells you to do or shows you, sort of thing. Because obviously stuff like psychedelics, shadow work, meditation isn't really mainstream, you know, like that, all that self work, the healing, like, well, an inherently sick society isn't gonna give you the medicine to make it better, sort of thing, you know. Like, well, that's my own opinion there, but yeah. So, what was it that you found with when you started? Well, you moved out of Newcastle, and where did you start finding people that were looking on the path of healing, sort of thing? Was it something that you sort of fell into, you looked for like consciously, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, Johnny. Yeah, so at the time I was obviously living in Newcastle, but I was surrounding myself for a long time before I actually made the move with just different podcasts and different books and surrounding myself with different information online. And that just opens so much possibility, because wherever we've grown up, and if we grow up in the UK like I did in Newcastle, you're only kind of subject to that culture. And that culture kind of presses itself onto you. And then you kind of believe that that is who you are. And it kind of shuts down a lot of these different possibilities. And what I've found is that by, meeting other people, whether they be, great healers or just people who are, living a life that might be more aligned to what feels more true to me,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
yeah.
begin to learn from them, and begin to see how they see the world slightly differently. And then that slowly began to break many of the frames and beliefs that I had about myself and what was possible for me based on the culture that I'd grown up in. So I guess for anyone listening, even just listening to this podcast, I guess you're already beginning to expand your own awareness of what is possible. And you can begin to dismantle some of those beliefs and question them, like, it might be around money, it might be about relationships, it might be around your own well-being. And you can begin to question that and ask if you actually do want something different. Like, if you are struggling with money or relationships or your mental health, you can begin to ask yourself, do you actually want something different? And that's a real deep question, because you might not, you might actually not, you might be quite comfortable with where you are, you might be happy with where you are. And if that's the case, then you're not ready to really make changes, or maybe you're only beginning to slowly move towards it, and you just got to do what's right for you. But I really knew that something wasn't right for me, because I'd spent so much effort and time and energy to kind of create this life which society thought would make me happy, and it just broke my frame, because I was like, this is fucking bullshit. And I was actually really upset about it, because I'd spent like 5 or 6 years like working 50, 60 hours a week to get to the end point, to realize there is no end point. It's all a journey, and I didn't actually enjoy that journey so much. It was kind of a lot of pain and struggle and long hours, and it was only from realizing from my teachers and my mentors that there's actually other ways of doing it, and you can actually find fulfillment in the day-to-day, still while pursuing big goals. And nothing wrong with having a goal, but it's like you want to actually be enjoying what you're doing. You actually want to be feeling like you're giving back to other people and contributing to others, and finding that balance. And that's really what began for me to create a meaningful life.
Yeah, yeah, that's quality, man. Inspiring stuff. Did you when you back again to like what you were saying about this journey of healing, like did you what was what was like, would you say that before you realized that you needed to go on the path of healing, did you what made you realize that? Did you feel like, was there pain there? Was there, do you know what I mean? Like what made you, like, what inspired you to go down that path?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I realized that many of my behaviors weren't in alignment with what I actually wanted. So like, I might have been, there was just it's really hard to explain, because sometimes it's quite subtle and sometimes it's quite obvious. The more obvious stuff might have been like a lot of the time I would feel, I guess, almost like a subtle depression. I would sometimes feel anxious and speaking in groups. um, I would, I would find a lot of comfort in food, even though like I might look fit. I was still, finding a lot of comfort in food and essentially avoiding the things that I really wanted in life. But it was just like, yeah, it was almost this just subtle sense. If you've ever had a bout of depression or, felt anxiety about speaking with other people or speaking up in groups, um, these were some of the telltale signs. Some of the others ones where I would just feel fucking angry sometimes. And, a lot of that I took out in the gym, but sometimes in my early 20s that would just explode on other people. I would just like, it might be in my work, to unfortunately to some of my former colleagues, like I would just fucking blow up and start fucking shouting, and or to my partners, my past partners. And these just were behaviors that I knew that I didn't want to do, but they were just somehow happening, and I was being triggered by certain things. And these were all telltale signs that, like, I was like, what's underneath all of this? Like, what's beneath the surface of this? And that really began my inquiry of what's at the root of this. And that obviously led me to discover the healing path, so to speak.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. Well, so on your journey through healing, what sort of, well, you said you touched upon meditation and meeting like-minded people who gave you their insights and, well, of experiences of from their paths that are all guiding lights, But um, what what sort of therapies have you found on your journey through that healing process that have benefited you, that what sort of, what sort of stuff's out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Johnny. One of the things that it took me a long time to figure out was that the healing is in actually feeling. And the reason that that's so difficult is because a lot of the things that we are either consciously or unconsciously running from can be so deep in our unconscious mind or from our past. Just to keep it like more tangible, um, let's say, for instance, something happened in your past that made you believe something about yourself. So you began telling a story about yourself. Maybe you were bullied at school. Maybe your parents treated you in a certain way. Maybe they didn't give you the love that you needed. Sometimes we might not even be aware that that behavior wasn't acceptable or wasn't right. But then from that, we can often create stories around ourselves, about ourselves. And then from that story, we begin acting out certain behaviors because we begin to believe something about ourselves based on that story. So in order to actually heal it, you actually have to go back and feel it. And that's the really hard part. And one of my favorite philosophers is Joseph Campbell, who wrote A Hero with a Thousand Faces. Basically, he decoded all myths and worked out that they all had a similar arc, similar archetype, similar story structure, which is called the hero's journey, which lots of people have heard about. But he said one amazing thing which really stuck with me, and that was the cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. It's the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So what I realized was the cave that I feared to enter was my own emotional realm, was to actually feel my own past experiences from being in childhood. Because there was stuff that happened both with, with my parents and just with school and moving around a lot. There was a ton of stuff which happened. And by going back into that and re-feeling those experiences through different modalities, which we can talk about in a second, and actually reprocessing them, you're kind of digesting them like you would food, and you're kind of allowing them to release. And that might be in a more somatic style therapy, like a breath work, or specifically somatic experiencing, which is invented by a guy called Peter Levine, who might be worth looking up for anyone interested. But there's many different tools that can kind of release this from the body. Psychedelic therapy would be another one, but I would only recommend doing that somewhere where it's either coming highly recommended, or it's kind of a medical facility, because it's such a can be such a challenging experience. so yeah, there's some of the tools that you can use to access those deeper parts of ourselves, to begin to release that from the body, to begin to refeel it and reprocess it and digest it. And the amazing and kind of magical thing that happens when you do that is it kind of releases, and you kind of like, it kind of creates space that wasn't there before. And that to me is where the real transformation happens, because we can't really just think ourselves to success per se. The mind is a great tool, but you've got to get the body on board first. And that's what all the latest research is saying, whether it be Peter Levine or whether it be Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote an amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score, which I definitely recommend anyone checking out.
Body that keeps the score.
Yeah, but the whole theory behind it is that you feel it to heal it. That is the primary principle that all of those teachers who are on the leading edge of the field right now are saying, which links perfectly back up to the yogis and the South American shamans and healers. Like, they've known for a long time that it's stored deep in our tissues and our cells, and that by going into it and feeling it, we can release that from the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can get the mind on board. Then you can start using, positive affirmations and positive self-talk. Like, these are all great things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you notice yourself still trying to, say if you right now you're using positive affirmations, you're using some of these kind of like mind tools, but you're still not able to go after the thing that you want to go after in life, whether that be a partner or a podcast you want to set up, or jumping on Instagram Live, or sharing your voice, whatever it might be that you desire.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice yourself not being able to go after that, there's probably a part of you that feels so scared about doing that based on something that happened in your past.
Mm-hmm.
So your body isn't on board. Your body is saying, fuck no. Like, your mind's saying, yes, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
But your body's saying, that's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to retrain essentially your nervous system to be okay with whatever it is that you're wanting to move towards. And that can be a really slow process, to begin unfolding, to begin kind of holding those different parts of ourselves and loving them for keeping us safe. Because, man, like, we've all got a nervous system. We've all had an experience, and it's really just doing its best to keep us safe. And we can beat it up. We can we can be really mean to ourselves a lot of the time, for not going after the things that we want. Right. But it can be really humbling to realize that it's just doing its best, man. It's just trying to survive. It just wants to connect,
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. It's like almost like we're like, oh shit, can't do this, can't do that. But in reality, it's just working the way that, out of experience, it's working properly, if anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost like, can you say thank you to that? Like, thank you, body, for trying to keep me safe.
Yeah. Learn to talk to it with love. Yeah. Might change it all. So with these, so how would somebody, obviously, like breath work, like, how would somebody look into going down that path, reach out? Is there any sort of like websites or something that's got that sort of like, people can reach out to, or anything?
Yeah, Johnny. I would recommend people, if you're interested in that, it can be a challenging book to read, but I would definitely recommend checking out some of Bessel van der Kolk's work.
How do you spell that, so I can put it in the bio?
That's a good question, brother. It's Bessel VANDER van der Kolk, KOLK. Yeah, Bessel van der Kolk.
Oh,
but if you make a spell mistake, Google's pretty good at correcting us.
Yeah. It's like the machines are doing it all for us, aren't they?
That would be one thing. Maybe getting yourself to an online breathwork class.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a great thing. I'm about to start doing some solely with men, though. That'll be starting late December, early next year, for anyone interested. Or you can just check out any type in breathwork into Instagram, breathwork facilitators, and so many people are hosting different groups and practices. That will be something that's going to begin to get you into your body.
Mm-hmm.
Other practices might be meditation can be one, but that can be a lot of mind focus. You could look up felt sense meditations. That can be a really good beginning block to start from, to begin to, it's called
Felt
felt sense
felt
meditation.
sense.
Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
there's tons of stuff on YouTube about that. That can be really helpful. Even before going into breath work, I'd actually recommend just beginning to slowly get into your body, and because breath work can be quite intense actually, so
Yeah,
that can
yeah,
really
yeah.
be a challenge for the nervous system. So just beginning to feel your body with something like a felt sense meditation would be great. Then, looking up all of these different practitioners, whether it be breath work, if you have the ability, obviously I do have had a lot of positive experiences with psychedelics. They've been a huge part of my healing journey.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So it'd be unfair not to mention that.
Yeah.
And there's some great, centers and places around the world that you can check out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, man, that's pretty much it. But the premise, or the biggest thing that I've learned over the past 10 years or whatever since beginning this journey is feeling it to heal it. That's the
Feel
that's
it to
the
heal it, man. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
that's the hard
definitely.
part, man. That's the hard part.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Well, I'm going through. Personally, I'm going through a journey right now of healing, sort of thing. Sort of like inspired me to just get the podcast out there and learn and get as many people on board and get everybody learning, sort of thing. And practice did release feel it to was it feel it to heal it.
Feel it to heal it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other night, well, it's not going to the source of it, but I released a lot watching a film, man, and it was like felt like just fantastic after. Do you know what I mean? I was watching a film, just crying, crying and crying, and then just like afterwards, it's just like feel like you feel healed. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
it's it.
just weight lifted off, man. Definitely, completely agree
Yeah,
with
it's
that.
beautiful. Yeah, films can be a great tool as well. Some of my
Yeah,
clients who I work with, I recommend them watching films. There's actually a great TV series that I put a few people onto called This Is Us.
yeah.
It's a
Oh yeah,
popular
yeah,
TV
yeah, yeah.
series.
My
You know it?
sister was saying about that. Yeah,
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 right. But they're actually covering both. It's very cleverly done, but they're covering trauma and transgenerational trauma in that series. That's ultimately what it's about. And whoever
yeah,
wrote that is definitely trauma informed.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they're covering so many topics from, to gender, to race, to the effects of war and the impact that had on us. And yeah, it's a really good watch if you're interested in this type of stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
I've cried many times, man. You ask my partner. We're just like yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Well, yeah, that brings me to the next point. So, a trauma-informed coach, what does that entail? So that means, obviously, well, by name, by definition, it's you're informed about trauma and you use that to try and help people on their path of healing. Am I right with that? Is it? Or
Pretty close,
yeah.
man. Yeah. So unlike a therapist or a psychologist, um, they solely work with your trauma, and I certainly recommend my clients to often have a therapist that they work with alongside the coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between a therapist and a coach is a therapist is often talking about the past,
Mm-hmm.
and solely working with that, whereas coach is I'm aware of the past, I'm aware of many of the areas of trauma which may be affecting your current lived experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're talking about creating the future. And then that's ultimately, for me, that's ultimately where the healing is, because what you want to take from therapy isn't just being stuck in the past. You want to actually begin to implement that into your life, and that's where a coach can
Oh yeah,
really
100.
help.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and unlike um, just a traditional coach, for someone who is on the healing path, aware of their own mental health, some of that might be um, triggering if there isn't that awareness of your own personal history and traumas and experience, and where you grew up in the world, your race, your gender, all of these different factors which might be contributing to your own experience, because we can't all just have the same thing. We all do start at a different point in life, and we have different advantages and we have different disadvantages. And it's kind of working with that awareness of that person that I sit in front with of their experience and their traumas, and then helping them cultivate the life that they want to live and helping them move towards that.
Yeah, man, that's powerful stuff, man. So yeah, so helping create a better future, you know, for like more people in tune, more people healed. Yeah, man, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, how did you get into it?
It's a good question again. So I started a film company and a YouTube channel. It was similar. It was similar. No, it wasn't quite a podcast, but it was like a video series on YouTube, and I was just interviewing lots of other people that really inspired me. And yeah, I realized that many of them were essentially coaches who were trauma informed, and I just decided after a while that that's something that I really wanted to do. And it took me a while to get there because I didn't feel worthy of it for a long time. So I had to come to a place within my own healing journey to feel like I was ready to take that on. And it's been so rewarding, man. Like just seeing the transformation that my clients have is just like, it's one of the most beautiful experiences to see people like blossom like flowers and just really step into the fullness of their life and move out of depression and meaninglessness into a life of purpose and meaning, and me getting to witness that ironically is deeply meaningful. So it's it's a beautiful gift.
Yeah, man, definitely. But yeah, that's very informative and yeah, beautiful, man. And I think that's everything I had in mind to cover, man. Is there anything like you'd like to say to anybody who might be listening? And like,
yeah, just if you're listening to this, like thank you for doing the work. Thank you for showing up for yourself, and thank you to you, Johnny, for putting this podcast together, sharing your own experiences. That's how we heal. Like we're all in this together, we're all on our own journeys, and by sharing it and by opening up to each other and by making mental health a commonplace practice, like that's really what I want to see in the world. I really want to see mental health being as popular as physical health is today.
Yeah, I see.
So and the only way that we do that is by sharing and by showing up and opening this topic up to just being a part of our normal conversation as human beings. So just want to thank everyone for listening. And if you can, share the podcast, or just share your stories online, share what you're going through if that feels right to you, or open up to a friend, and together we can slowly, bit by bit, step by step, we can make changes.
That's it, man. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Well, absolute pleasure to have you on, Rick, mate.
'Cause I'll be there for you, 'cause we care for you. You're there for me too, my friend. I know it's hard sometimes when you feel left behind. Tell me what's on your mind. Why do this on your own, yeah? 'Cause I'll be there for you, my friend. 'Cause I'll be there for you, 'cause you're there for me too. Oh yeah, there for you in the end.